Kai's hand caught her wrist, pulling her behind him. His weapon was already drawn, pain appearing to have been set aside entirely. He signaled to his men with a quick series of hand gestures that sent them spreading out through the space. The panic room door had been drilled open. Sparks showered from the destroyed electronic lock. The heavy steel door hung ajar. The server room doors stood wide open. Inside, surrounded by the glow of monitors and the pulse of machines that ran an empire, stood Daniel Lim. He had positioned himself perfectly, back to the wall, gun in one hand, the other resting on the main server stack. And strapped across his chest, visible even from the doorway, was enough explosive material to reduce the entire penthouse to rubble. "Hello, brother," Daniel said. His voice was steady but sweat shone on his forehead. "I was starting to think you wouldn't make it back. That would have been disappointing. I wanted you to see this." Kai moved forward slowly, his weapon trained on his brother's head. "Daniel, what are you doing? What I should have done 5 years ago." Daniel's laugh came out jagged and broken. "You made me second, always second. I built half this empire with my blood, my plans, my sacrifices, and you treat me like a servant while you play house with a delivery girl." His eyes found Mia. The hatred in them was concentrated and pure. "Give me the encryption keys to all the offshore accounts. Transfer full control to me, or I detonate these servers and we all die, starting with her." The gun shifted, pointing directly at Mia's chest. Dex moved instantly. Kai's hand stopped him. "Stand down." "Kai," Mia started. "Quiet." Kai's voice was soft, lethal. He walked forward, placing himself between Mia and the gun barrel. "You want the keys, brother. You want my empire, then shoot me. Take it. But understand the moment you pull that trigger, Dex puts 3 rounds through your skull and you'll be dead before I hit the floor." "I'm already dead." Daniel's voice cracked. "The FBI knows about this place. I gave them everything in exchange for immunity. They'll be here in 20 minutes, so either you give me those keys and I disappear with enough money to never be found, or we all burn together." The server room was getting hotter. Mia realized with a jolt of horror that Daniel had already started a chain reaction. The servers were overheating, the cooling system disabled. "You sold us to the FBI," Kai said quietly. Not a question, just confirmation of something he had already suspected. "You betrayed me first." Daniel's voice cracked further. "When you brought her in, when you gave her access to everything, when you looked at her like," he stopped. "Breathing hard, she made you weak, the great ghost of Portland, brought down by a girl in a delivery jacket." Kai smiled. "It was terrible and beautiful and absolutely certain. She made me unstoppable." He glanced at Mia over his shoulder. Their eyes met, and in that one look, an entire silent conversation passed between them. She saw the question, the trust, the complete faith that she would understand exactly what he needed. Mia's hand went to her phone. She had built the surge protocol 2 weeks ago, a way to overload specific server sections if they were ever compromised. She had never mentioned it to anyone, not even Kai, but somehow he knew. Somehow he had trusted her to be prepared for exactly this. Mia pulled up the command, her fingers completely steady despite the gun pointed at her chest. She located the server rack directly to Daniel's left, the one marked with a red 7, the one that held the most sensitive data. She looked at Kai and nodded once. "You should have taken what I offered you and walked away," Kai said softly. "You should have gone while you still could." He stepped aside. Mia executed the command. The server rack erupted not with fire but with electricity. A massive surge of power that overloaded every circuit in a cascading chain reaction. Sparks exploded like fireworks. The smell of burning and electricity hit the air instantly. Daniel screamed, his hands flying up to shield his face from the blinding white flash. Kai moved, one shot, clean, professional. Daniel fell. The dead man's explosive switch on his chest failed to detonate because Mia had already disabled it remotely, had hacked the detonator the moment she had first seen it through the server room doorway. The room went quiet except for the crackling of dying electronics and the particular smell of gunpowder mixing with smoke. Kai lowered his weapon slowly. He looked at the body of his brother, at the man who had shared his blood and his empire, and had ultimately chosen betrayal anyway. His expression was unreadable, Not grief, not satisfaction, just a terrible and cold and final acceptance. He dropped the gun, turned to Mia. "Now," he said quietly, "we are clean." Mia's legs gave out. She didn't fall. Kai caught her with his good arm, pulling her against him. She could feel his heart beating through his chest. Steady and strong, despite the violence, despite the pain, despite everything. "You knew," she whispered against him. "You knew I had a backup plan. I trusted you to have one." His hand came up to cradle the back of her head, fingers gently tangling in her braids. "I trust you with my life, Mia, with everything I have." Behind them, Dex was already organizing cleanup. Quinn and Marcus were getting Jace to the medical room. The body would be handled. The servers would be salvaged. The FBI would arrive and find an empty building, all evidence gone. But in that moment, standing in the ruins of the server room with smoke still curling around them and the smell of gunpowder in the air, Mia and Kai existed in a small world of something that felt dangerously close to love. 3 hours later, Jace was conscious. Mia sat beside his bed in the penthouse medical room, holding his hand. Their mother smiled at them from a photo on the nightstand. Jace looked fragile against the white sheets. His leg in a cast, Roman 4 running fluids and medicine. But he was alive. He was here. "You're really working for him," Jace said. His voice rough from disuse, from days of screaming in a prison cell while the air ran out. The ghost of Portland. "I work with him," Mia corrected quietly. "There's a difference, is there?" Jace's eyes, so like hers, warm brown and knowing too much, searched her face. "Mia, this isn't you. This world, this violence, this..." He gestured weakly at the expensive room around them. "This isn't what I destroyed myself for. I wanted you to have a better life, not to become a criminal." Mia's throat tightened. "You don't get to make that choice for me anymore, Jace. You gave up that right when you sold weapons code to people who used it to kill." He flinched like she had struck him. "I know what you did," Mia continued, her voice soft but completely steady. "I know about the money, about the 17 people who died, about the deal you made to pay my tuition." She squeezed his hand. "You sacrificed your soul for me. Now let me save mine my own way." Before Jace could respond, alarms screamed through the penthouse. Not security alarms, emergency broadcast alerts. Mia's phone lit up with message after message flooding in. City-wide power failure. Hospitals affected. Emergency services down. Her blood went ice cold. The phone rang. Unknown number. Mia answered, already knowing. "Hello, Mia." Nolan Vance's voice was smooth and completely calm, despite the catastrophe he had just unleashed on an entire city. "I hope your little family reunion was sweet, because it's about to end very badly. What did you do?" She was already moving. Leaving Jace's room, running toward the server room where Kai stood directing repairs. "I activated a kill switch inside Portland's power grid," Vance said pleasantly. "My government clearance is still active for another hour. That's all the time I need. Right now, 15 hospitals across the city are running on backup generators that will fail in approximately 45 minutes. Thousands of patients, including your mother at Portland Medical, who is currently on life support, will die." Mia's world tilted. Her mother, on machines that were about to go dark. "What do you want?" "What you stole from me. Your brother, your skills, my operation. You destroyed 3 years of work when you broke him out. So here is your choice, Mia. You upload a virus to Kai Sion's financial accounts, every dollar, every asset. You burn his empire completely to the ground. Or I let those hospitals go dark and everyone, including your mother, dies screaming. You can't." "I can and I will. You have 30 minutes to decide." "Tick-tock, Mia. How much is your soul worth?" The line went dead. Mia stood frozen in the server room doorway, phone pressed against her ear. Kai looked up from the damaged machines, saw her face, and crossed to her in 3 steps. What happened, she told him. Every word, every terrible choice Vance was offering. Kai's expression went cold. Not angry. Something beyond anger, like something inside him had crystallized into a purpose nothing could bend. "Show me." Mia pulled up the city power grid. The damage was precise, surgical. Vance had targeted critical systems with the planning of someone who had been preparing this for months. "Hospitals, emergency services." the exact things that couldn't be quickly rerouted. I can't stop it remotely, Mia whispered. The kill switch is isolated. I'd need physical access to the control station. That's inside a government building with security I can't get through in time. Before your mother dies. Kai finished quietly. Mia's hands shook. She looked at him. This man who had caught her when she fell, who had taken a bullet meant for her, who had burned through half his empire to keep her brother breathing. I have to do it, she said. I have to delete your accounts. I don't have a choice. Kai moved closer. He took her face in both hands, tilting it up so she had to meet his eyes. There is always a choice, Mia, but I won't make this one for you. This is yours, your mother's life, or my empire. Choose. Tears streamed down her face. I can't. Yes, you can. His thumbs wiped her tears away. I've asked you to give up everything for me. Your freedom, your future, your moral lines. If I'm not willing to give up money for your family, then I am not worth what you've already sacrificed. He moved to her console himself, pulled up his encrypted accounts, $10 billion, everything he had built from nothing. He typed in the first part of the master password. The last 5 digits are the date we met. He said quietly. Delete all of it. Burn it down, save your mother. Mia's vision blurred. Kai, do it. He leaned in. His lips just barely brushing her ear, his breath warm against her skin. Money is just paper. Power is just a game. But you, his voice cracked just slightly. You are real. Your mother is real. Your brother is real. Choose them. Always choose them. Mia's fingers moved across the keyboard. She entered the final digits of the password, October 20th, the night she had walked into his building with spicy noodles and accidentally saved his empire. The deletion loaded. One button, one choice. $10 billion or her mother's life. She pressed it. The screens flooded red. Transfer initiated. Deletion in progress. Her phone rang immediately. Vance. Triumphant. Smart choice. Downloading the data now. Your mother gets to live another day, and I get to watch the ghost of Portland fall. The call ended. Mia collapsed into her chair, sobbing, watching $10 billion evaporate from Kai's accounts, watching everything he had built for years disappear in cascading deletions. Kai stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder, steady and warm. You did the right thing. I destroyed you. Mia whispered. No. His hand tightened. You saved what matters. We can rebuild money. We cannot rebuild your mother. On screen, the deletion completed. 0 balance, every account empty. Mia's phone pinged. Hospital systems coming back online. Her mother stable. Crisis over. She should have felt relief. Instead, she felt hollow, like she had carved out a piece of herself and fed it to someone who didn't deserve it. Then Kai's phone buzzed, a message from his financial team. Confused, urgent, Mia looked up at him. Saw something shift in his expression, not panic, not anger, understanding. Mia, he said slowly, check Vance's server activity. She did. Pulled up the background trace she had been running all along. Watched as Vance downloaded the deleted financial data to his private government servers. Then she saw it. The file size was wrong, too large. The deletion data should have been clean and simple. But Vance had downloaded something else embedded in the code. Something extra, something hidden. Mia's hands flew across the keyboard. She pulled up the hidden package she had built 3 weeks ago, disguised deep inside the financial protocols, waiting for exactly this moment. A Trojan horse, the money file wasn't just data. It was a tracker, a virus, and a complete exposure package containing every illegal thing Vance had ever done. Every bribe, every blackmail, every prisoner he had enslaved. Terabytes of evidence, all self-extracting the moment it landed on his secure servers. Mia stopped crying. A smile spread across her face, cold, calculating. The kind of smile she had learned by watching Kai destroy his enemies with nothing but code and cold patience. He took the bait, she whispered. Kai's hand slid from her shoulder to the side of her neck, his thumb resting against her pulse point. You beautiful, brilliant, ruthless creature. You planned this. We planned this. Mia looked up at him, saw the dark pride in his eyes. That night, we talked about Vance. You knew he would force me to choose. You knew he would try to take everything. So we gave him exactly what he wanted. And he infected his own servers with the evidence of his own crimes. Kai's smile matched hers now. Two people who had just snapped a trap shut. How long until it fully extracts? It's already extracting. Mia pulled up the server logs. In approximately 4 minutes, every major news organization in the country will receive an anonymous package with complete details on Vance's entire operation. The prison labor, the illegal surveillance, the bribes to judges, prosecutors, elected officials, everything. She stood, turned to face Kai fully. The money was never actually deleted. It's in cold storage, encrypted under my personal access codes only. I moved it the moment you gave me the master password. Vance downloaded empty accounts and a virus that is going to end his career, his freedom, and everything he has ever built. Kai stared at her. You burned my empire to save your mother and destroy Vance simultaneously. You gambled everything on your own brilliance. No. Mia reached up, her hand cupping his face, the way he had done to hers so many times. I gambled on us, on the fact that you would trust me to do exactly what needed to be done, even when it looked like I was betraying you. Kai pulled her against him, his mouth crashing down on hers. The kiss was desperate and claiming, and full of violence and devotion, and something that felt like falling and flying at the same exact time. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Mia's phone was ringing again. Vance, she answered. Put it on speaker. What did you? His voice was pure rage and pure terror combined into one sound. What did you do? My servers are infected. Mia finished calmly, with the truth. By now every law enforcement agency in the country has received your complete file. You're done, Vance. Kai's voice was silk and steel. Finished. The beautiful part, Mia added, is that you did it to yourself. Silence. Then, quietly, I'll kill you both. You'll go to prison, Mia interrupted. In the same building where you enslaved my brother. In the same cell block, with the same guards. And every single person in there will know exactly what you did to them. She hung up, turned to Kai, and for the first time since she had signed her life away in this penthouse, Mia Chen smiled like she had finally figured out exactly where she belonged. In the darkness, with the monsters, building empires from ash and code, and the terrible, beautiful, completely consuming thing she felt for a man who had burned the world to keep her safe. The news broke at dawn. Mia and Kai sat on the floor of the empty server room, surrounded by the wreckage of damaged equipment and the lingering smell of burned circuits. Between them, a grease-stained bag of takeout noodles, the same kind she had been delivering the very first night. A lifetime ago, on the monitor wall, every major news network showed the same image. Nolan Vance in handcuffs being walked out of his mansion, while reporters screamed questions he refused to answer. Former tech prosecutor Nolan Vance arrested on charges of human trafficking, racketeering, and corruption. Sources say the evidence includes detailed financial records and testimony from dozens of inmates forced to participate in illegal cybercrime operations. Mia watched the man who had tried to destroy her crumble on live television. She should have felt victorious, vindicated. Instead, she felt tired, hollowed out, like she had walked straight through fire and emerged on the other side as someone she didn't quite recognize anymore. Kai's hand found hers between them, his fingers interlacing with hers. He didn't speak. They had spent 3 hours in silence already. Rebuilding what Daniel had tried to shatter, restoring systems, covering tracks, being what they had become together. Partners, equals, something more dangerous than either of them had ever been alone. Where will they send him? Mia asked quietly. Kai's smile was sharp as a newly cut edge. I made some calls. He won't be in protective custody. He's going to general population. Mia turned to look at him. Understanding settling in. The same prison where he enslaved your brother. Where every single inmate knows exactly what he did. Kai's voice was soft and lethal. He'll last maybe a week, maybe less. It should have horrified her, should have made her pull away from the casual cruelty, the calculated revenge. Instead, Mia squeezed his hand tighter. They finished the noodles in silence, Watch the sun rise over Portland, washing the rain. Soaked city in gold and blood, red morning light. Watch their enemy fall. Watch the world shift underneath their feet. Then Kai stood. He disappeared into his office for a moment. Came back holding two things. A passport, brand new, with Mia's photo but a different name. Complete with entry stamps and a history and a life that existed only on paper, but would survive any investigation. And a check for $50 million made out to Mia Chen, signed in Kai's distinctive dark ink. He held them both out to her. "You're free," he said quietly. "Jace is safe. Your mother's medical bills are covered through a trust that can never be traced back to me. You've completed your contract, saved my empire, and destroyed my enemies." His gray eyes held hers, steady, unreadable. "Take these, disappear. Start the life your brother paid for you to have." Mia stared at the passport and check like they were something dangerous. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was it, the escape clause. The exit she had demanded he write into the contract. Freedom, safety. Everything she had thought she wanted the night she had signed her name and walked into this cage. She stood slowly, took both items from his hands, felt the weight of them. Paper and possibility, and the clean start she had been chasing for 5 years. Then she looked at Kai, really looked at him. He was giving her freedom because he had promised, because he was a man who kept his word even when it destroyed him. She could see it in the tension of his jaw, the carefully controlled blankness of his expression. Letting her go was costing him everything. Mia walked to the window. The rain had finally stopped completely. Portland stretched out below them. The city they had bled for, fought for, nearly died inside. The morning light was washing it clean, making it new. She thought about the girl she had been 3 weeks ago, exhausted, invisible, delivering noodles to people who never once looked at her face. That girl had wanted escape, had wanted safety and simple days and a life without violence. But that girl had died in this penthouse, had been reborn in silk and soot and the terrifying, consuming devotion of a monster who had stepped between her and a bullet without hesitation. Mia turned, looked at Kai standing in the ruins of his server room, wounded and deadly and completely certain he was doing the right thing by letting her walk away. She walked back to him, met his eyes, and tore the check in half. The sound of ripping paper was very loud in the silent room. Kai's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Hope, fear, wonder. Mia dropped the pieces. Watched them drift to the floor like leaves. Then she walked to his desk, the massive black thing that commanded the room and represented everything he had built. She sat in his chair. The leather was still warm. The monitors showed their empire, servers humming back to life. Money moving, operations running, the city below, stretched out and waiting. Mia looked up at Kai, standing perfectly still by the window, and smiled, the smile she had learned from watching him, cold and certain and absolutely unafraid. "I don't want to run," she said quietly. "I want to rule." For 3 heartbeats Kai didn't move, didn't breathe, then he smiled, a real smile. Not the predator's baring of teeth she had catalogued over 3 weeks, not the calculated expression he wore for enemies. A genuine smile that transformed his face from something terrifying into something devastatingly human. He crossed to her slowly, deliberately, like approaching something sacred. When he reached the desk, he moved behind the chair, behind her. His hand came down on her shoulder, warm and certain and completely steady. His ring, black metal that he always wore, clicked softly against the leather. "Long live the Queen," he murmured. His other hand came up, fingers tangling carefully in her braids, tilting her head back until she was looking up at him. The position was vulnerable, trusting, intimate in a way that had nothing to do with bodies and everything to do with 2 souls finally laid bare. "You understand what this means?" Kai asked softly. "What you're choosing. There's no going back, Mia. No clean slate. No escape. You'll be mine and I'll be yours. And we'll build empires from the wreckage and burn down anyone who stands in our way." Mia reached up, her hand covering his on her shoulder. "I know exactly what I'm choosing. You, this us. The darkness and the power and the terrible, beautiful thing that happens when you learn to love a monster and realize somewhere along the way you became one too. Kai leaned down, his lips brushing her ear. Then welcome home, my queen. Let's burn the world together. The kiss was slow this time. Deep, full of everything they had survived to get here. When they finally broke apart, Portland sprawled below them. Washed clean, ready. Mia Chen, former MIT genius, former invisible delivery girl, former nobody, sat in the throne of the ghost of Portland and smiled like a woman who had finally found the exact place in the world where she belonged. In the darkness, in the violence, in the arms of a monster who had offered her freedom and received a queen in return. The screens flickered around them, showing the empire they had built together, the power they had taken, the future they had claimed in blood and code, and the kind of love that never wanted to be saved. Outside, the sun rose over their city. Inside, the king and queen of Portland's underworld began planning their next move. Together, always. I've been hunting you for 3 years. His voice dropped lower, became something darker. Ever since I traced the original code architecture back to a thesis written by a student who had been erased from every single database. Someone brilliant enough to build what I needed. Dangerous enough that someone powerful had wanted them to disappear. I knew whoever had built my system was valuable, irreplaceable, and I knew eventually I would need them. He leaned in. His forehead nearly touching hers, his breath warm against her rain, cold skin. The space between them felt charged. Electric, like the air in the exact seconds before lightning strikes. I didn't expect you to be you, he murmured. Didn't expect you to look at me like I was something human instead of something monstrous. Didn't expect to want to keep you for reasons that had nothing at all to do with code. Mia couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the feeling of his hand on her face. His body close enough to feel the warmth radiating off him. His voice wrapping around her like smoke. The alarm screamed through the penthouse and shattered the moment like a rock through glass. Kai pulled back instantly. His entire expression shifted in the space of a single heartbeat, from something dangerous and intimate to lethal and focused, just like that. He grabbed Mia's wrist, not rough but firm and absolutely certain, and pulled her inside, away from the open balcony. Away from windows that had suddenly become vulnerabilities. What is that? She demanded, stumbling after him as he moved fast toward the server room. Breach alarm. His voice had gone completely cold, professional level. Someone is inside our network. Mia's mind shifted gears automatically. She dropped into her chair before he had even released her wrist. Her fingers flew across the keyboard before she had consciously decided to move. The screens lit up red, warning after warning cascading across them. Systems hemorrhaging data like open wounds. This isn't random, she said, tracking the attack, watching the patterns ripple through their defenses. They know our architecture. They're using our own security protocols to break our own security. They're inside our system using my code to destroy my code. Can you stop it? I'm trying. Her fingers froze. Her blood went cold. Kai, the signal. It's not coming from outside. It's bouncing through a satellite relay. Trace it. She did. Followed the digital trail through layer after layer of encryption, through fake server locations and hidden networks, through security that should have been impossible to penetrate. The path twisted and doubled back on itself, designed to confuse, designed to hide, designed to make tracing impossible. But Mia had written half of this architecture. She knew its weak points better than whoever was attacking knew its strong ones. The source address appeared on screen, and Mia's world tilted completely. Washington State Maximum Security Prison, Cell Block D, Death Row. Jace, she whispered. The name came out broken into pieces. Kai's expression went absolutely cold. Not angry. Anger was too hot, too human, too emotional for what this was. This was something else entirely. Something that made trained fighters flinch and hardened criminals confess without being asked. This was the face of a man who had built an empire on perfectly controlled brutality. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Get me everything on Prosecutor Nolan Vance. Employment history, money records, every property he owns, every person he's connected to, family, everything. I want it in 5 minutes. He hung up. Looked at Mia with eyes that had shifted from storm gray to pure steel. Your brother isn't working alone, he said quietly. Someone is using him, someone with access to government resources and the technical setup to run a hidden operation inside a federal prison. Mia's hands trembled on the keyboard. Vance, she said, the prosecutor, the one who pushed for Jace's execution, who blocked every single appeal. He's running a cyber warfare operation using condemned prisoners as forced labor. Kai said, his voice was perfectly calm. Your brother isn't attacking me because he wants to. He's doing it because if he doesn't, Vance will execute him early. Or worse, Vance will kill you. The pieces snapped together with horrifying clarity. Jace's code, the execution date pushed forward by 6 months out of nowhere. The attacks starting exactly 2 weeks ago, right after Mia had signed her contract with Kai. Right after her name had appeared in his system. He's trying to destroy you to get me out, Mia realized. The horror settled in her chest like heavy stone. He thinks if your empire falls, you'll release me. He's trying to save me by attacking the one person keeping him alive. He's wrong. Kai moved to her console. Placed both hands on the desk on either side of her chair, surrounding her completely. His presence was overwhelming. Heat and danger and a certainty that felt carved from stone. I don't let go of what's mine, not for governors, not for brothers, not for anyone. He pulled up a program Mia had never seen before. His fingers moving across the keyboard with that same lethal precision he brought to everything. The screen filled with numbers. Offshore accounts, property records, investment portfolios, all connected to one name, Nolan Vance. What are you doing? Mia asked, watching the numbers appearing on screen. Calling his bluff. Kai activated something labeled the drain protocol. On screen, the numbers in Vance's accounts started falling. 10,000 gone, 20,000, 50,000. Every second, money bled from Vance's carefully hidden accounts into digital emptiness, disappearing like it had never existed at all. Kai picked up his phone again, dialed a number that appeared on screen next to Vance's name. The call connected. Mia could hear someone answer. Hello, Prosecutor Vance, Kai said. His voice was pleasant, conversational. The tone of someone discussing the weather at a dinner party. It was completely terrifying. I hope I'm not calling too late. I'm currently watching your net worth drop by $10,000 every second. Quite interesting to observe, really. In 5 minutes, you'll lose your Swiss vacation home. In 10, your daughter's entire trust fund disappears. In 30, you'll be filing for bankruptcy. She could hear shouting on the other end. Threats, legal language. The panicked, furious sounds of a man watching his whole life catch fire. Kai's smile was a knife's edge. Every second you keep Jace Chen in that cell, you lose a luxury car. Every minute a property. Every hour a legacy. Your beach house gone. Your wife's jewelry collection sold off. Your son's college savings erased. TikTok prosecutor. How much is your revenge actually worth? More shouting. Demands to know who he was talking to, threats of government involvement, promises of federal prosecution. Let me make this very simple, Kai continued, his voice dropping to something soft and absolutely lethal. The kind of quiet that always came just before violence. You have 2 options. You release Jace Chen into my custody immediately, or I drain every account, destroy every asset, and send documented evidence of every illegal operation you're running inside that prison to every major news outlet in the country, all of them. They will each receive complete documentation of your secret coding operation, including prisoner testimonies and full money trails. The transfer or the truth, you have 60 seconds to decide. Silence on the other end, long, grinding silence. Then, grudging, defeated, the sound of a man with no moves left. The transfer will take 72 hours to process legally. You have 12. Kai hung up. Looked at Mia, his gray eyes unreadable in the blue-white glow of the monitors. Your brother will be here by Friday, he said quietly. And then we're going to have a conversation about loyalty, love, and what happens when someone attacks what belongs to me. Mia should have felt grateful. Should have thanked him for doing what she never could have managed alone. Instead, all she could think about was that she had just watched Kai destroy a powerful man's entire world in under 3 minutes, using nothing but code and cruelty and the casual ruthlessness of someone who had never once questioned his right to use power any way he chose. And the most terrifying part of all was this: she had found it beautiful. Friday arrived dressed in rain and violence. The waterfront dock stretched along the industrial edge of the harbor, like a graveyard of rusted shipping containers and forgotten things. 3 in the morning, no witnesses anywhere, just the sound of dark water slapping against old pier posts and the distant cry of a cargo ship somewhere out in the fog. Mia stood beside Kai's car, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it knocking in her throat. She had changed out of the silk robe and expensive clothes Kai kept her in, back into her own jeans and jacket that felt like armor, like the girl she used to be before she signed everything away. Kai stood 5 feet away, perfectly still despite the cold. He had worn all black tonight, no expensive suit, no silk tie, just dark tactical gear that made him look exactly like what he was, a predator ready for war. His right-hand man, Dex, and 6 other men formed a loose perimeter around them, hands resting near weapons that stayed just out of sight. The air tasted like salt and motor fuel, and the particular kind of electricity that comes right before blood hits the ground. The armored transport appeared through the fog like a ghost. Black, unmarked, bulletproof glass. It rolled to a stop 50 feet away. Engine still running. Headlights cutting through the curtain of rain. Mia's breath caught. This was it. Jace, after 5 years of concrete and steel and death row, he was here. The back door opened. Jace stepped out slowly. Like his legs had forgotten how to do this. He was thinner than she remembered. Prison clothes hung off his frame in bright orange against the darkness. His wrists were cuffed in front of him. His face God. His face looked older, carved hollow by guilt and years. But his eyes, when they found her across the dock, his eyes were the same as they had always been. Warm and protective and full of a love that had damned them both. Mia didn't think, didn't wait for Kai's signal or permission or tactical clearance. She ran, Mia. Jace's face cracked open into something between a smile and a sob. He stumbled forward. Chains clinking, reaching for her with cuffed hands. The rifle shot split the night like the world tearing open. Jace's leg exploded. Blood sprayed across the wet dock. He went down hard, his scream cutting straight through Mia's chest like a blade. Jace, she was still running, still closing the distance. Her mind screaming that something was wrong, that Vance had agreed to the transfer, that this was supposed to be safe, that this could not be happening. Then she saw it, the red dot dancing on Jace's chest where he lay bleeding, moving, rising, settling on her own chest like a brand. Time turned to syrup. Mia heard Kai shout her name, heard Dex screaming orders, heard the unmistakable sounds of weapons being drawn. But all she could see was that red dot, that tiny point of laser light that meant someone out there in the dark had her heart in their crosshairs. Kai moved. He didn't run, didn't shout, just stepped directly in front of her with the kind of absolute certainty that said he had calculated this exact moment. Expected it, maybe even planned for it. The second shot rang out. The bullet hit Kai's left shoulder, spinning him around. Blood bloomed across his black shirt, dark and wet and terrifyingly real. He staggered but didn't fall. Didn't make a sound. Just turned back to face me with eyes that burned like winter fire. Get down. Then the dock erupted into chaos. The armored transport's side doors blew open. Men in tactical gear poured out, not prison guards, mercenaries. They moved with military precision, laying down covering fire as they grabbed Jace's broken, bleeding body and dragged him back toward the van. Kai's men returned fire. The waterfront lit up with muzzle flashes. The sound was deafening, bouncing off metal containers in every direction. Mia stood frozen, watching Jace disappear back into captivity, watching blood pour from Kai's shoulder, watching their carefully planned rescue turn into violence and betrayal and fire. Mia, Kai's voice cut through her. He grabbed her arm with his good hand, his grip iron tight despite the blood, soaking down his sleeve. Move, they ran. Dex was already at the car, engine roaring. Bullets sparked off the armored body as Kai shoved Mia into the back seat and dove in after her. The door slammed, tires screamed against wet asphalt. The dock disappeared behind them in a blur of rain and gunfire. Mia's hands were shaking, not just her hands, her whole body. She turned to Kai, saw him slumped against the leather seat, face pale, shoulder bleeding through his shirt in a spreading red stain. "You're hit," her voice came out strangled. "You're, oh God, you're bleeding. Flesh wound." Kai's voice was tight with pain but steady. The vest stopped most of it. Mia didn't think. She grabbed the hem of her own shirt and tore, ripping until she had a strip long enough to use. She pressed it against Kai's shoulder, and he hissed through his teeth, "I need to stop the bleeding." Her hands moved automatically. Years of late-night internet research on emergency medical care, when she couldn't afford to take her mother to the ER. "Hold still, Eva." He caught her wrist with his good hand. His fingers were warm despite everything. "I'm fine. You are not fine." The words came out as a scream. "You got shot. You stepped in front of a bullet meant for me. You," her voice broke. Why would you do that?" Kai looked at her, his gray eyes hazy with pain but completely fierce. His hand came up and cupped her face, leaving a smear of his own blood against her cheek. "You are my architect," he said quietly. "Nobody breaks what's mine." The words should have insulted her, should have reminded her that she was property. A possession, something owned, but the way he said it, the way he looked at her, like she was worth more than his empire, more than his life, it sounded less like ownership and more like a vow. Mia pressed the makeshift bandage harder against his wound, hands still shaking. "You're insane. You could have died. So could you." His thumb traced her cheekbone. Gentle, despite all the violence still ringing in her ears. That was unacceptable. The car raced through Portland's empty streets, rain hammering the windshield. In the front seat, Dex spoke rapidly into his phone, already coordinating with their other vehicles, already planning what came next. But in the back, in the dark, Mia and Kai existed in a small sealed world of leather and blood, and something that felt dangerously close to devotion. "Vance set us up," Mia whispered. "He never meant to let Jace go." "No." Kai's voice had gone cold again now, pain sharpening him back into the thing everyone feared. "He used your brother as bait, wanted to kill us both, eliminate the threat, and keep his operation running. He miscalculated. Significantly, Jace is hurt. They shot him. He's alive." Kai's certainty was absolute. "Vance needs him. Jace is his best programmer, his most valuable forced worker. The leg wound was to stop him running, not to kill him. Then what do we do?" Mia pressed harder against his shoulder as fresh blood soaked through the fabric. "How do we get Jace back?" Kai's smile was a knife edge. Beautiful and completely terrifying. We stop asking nicely. The penthouse had become a war room. Maps covered every flat surface. Guard rotation schedules, prison blueprints, thermal images of the maximum security facility. Kai had called in every favor, accessed every database, pulled every string available to him to build a complete picture of Vance's operation. Mia sat at her console and worked despite the exhaustion. Despite the blood still staining her hands, she had cleaned and bandaged Kai's shoulder herself after they returned, using a medical kit that was suspiciously well prepared. The bullet had gone clean through, missing bone and anything vital by inches. He had refused a hospital, refused any painkiller, just sat completely still while she stitched him up with hands that trembled less than they should have, then stood immediately and started planning. Now, 12 hours later, Kai leaned over the main planning table, his wounded shoulder barely slowing him down. Dex stood to his right. 4 other men Mia had learned to recognize, Quinn, Marcus, Sung, and a man everyone just called Rook, formed the rest of their assault team. Across the table, arguing loudly, stood Daniel Lim, Kai's younger brother, second in the organization. A man Mia had barely spoken to in her 2 weeks in the penthouse, who had watched her from a distance with cold calculation. Like he was simply waiting for her to fail. "This is suicide," Daniel said, his voice sharp. "You want to raid a federal prison for a delivery girl and a convict. You'll bring the entire government down on us." "The government is already involved," Kai replied calmly. "Vance is government. His operation is government. Sanctioned. We're not creating a new problem here. You're wounded. You should be resting, not planning an operation that gets us all killed." Daniel's eyes flicked to Mia with undisguised contempt. "All of this for her. You've known her 3 weeks. She is not worth your empire." The room went completely silent. Kai straightened slowly, his gray eyes going absolutely cold. "Say that again." Daniel seemed to realize he had crossed a line he couldn't step back from. But pride or stubbornness pushed him forward anyway. "I'm saying we should cut our losses. The girl's brother is already as good as dead. Let Vance keep him. We focus on protecting our own operations instead of throwing them away. Get out?" Kai's voice was so quiet it was somehow louder than a shout. "You're not part of this operation. You stay here and maintain our standard security. That is an order." Daniel's jaw tightened. For a moment, Mia thought he might actually push further. But something in Kai's expression, something that reminded everyone in the room exactly who the ghost of Portland really was, made him back down. "Fine." Daniel grabbed his phone from the table. "But when this falls apart, don't say I didn't warn you." He walked toward the elevator, sharp and furious. Mia watched him go. Every instinct she had was screaming that something was wrong, the way he had looked at her. The specific venom when he called her a delivery girl. The way his argument had felt less like genuine concern and more like something else. Something she couldn't name yet. She pulled out her laptop, fingers moving before she had fully made the decision to act. Daniel had been connected to their network all week. If he was planning something, there would be traces. There were always traces if you knew where to look. She found it in the data logs, encrypted messages. Hidden, carefully but not carefully enough. Information being transmitted to an external receiver. The signal bounced through multiple fake locations, but Mia had gotten very good at following these kinds of trails. The destination address made her blood turn to ice water. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Portland Field Office. Daniel wasn't just arguing against the operation. He was actively reporting them. Mia's mind raced. She could tell Kai, should tell Kai, but they were 1 hour away from launching the rescue. And if she revealed Daniel's betrayal right now, it would throw everything into complete chaos. Kai would confront his brother. Time would be lost, Jace would die. She needed to handle this herself. Mia pulled up a different program, one she had built 2 weeks ago as a backup plan, never actually expecting to need it. Medical device connection protocols. She had accessed the penthouse security records on her 3rd day here, had learned that Daniel had a pacemaker installed 5 years ago after a serious heart attack. Modern pacemakers connected wirelessly. Wireless connections could be accessed. Her fingers moved fast across the keyboard. It took 8 minutes to break through the device's security layer. Another 4 to establish full control. The device reported back steady readings, 130 beats per minute. Elevated, stressed, she wrote a simple override, a kill switch. Then she saved it, closed the laptop, and stood up. Daniel was in the kitchen pouring whiskey with shaking hands. His phone sat on the counter, screen dark but probably still transmitting their exact location to the FBI. Mia walked up behind him, silent as smoke. "You should be more careful about your medical devices," she said softly. Daniel spun around so fast whiskey sloshed over his hand. "What?" Mia held up her phone. On the screen, his pacemaker's readings pulsed in real time. "I just set your heart to manual control. Right now, your pacemaker is taking instructions from me, not your body. If I tell it to stop, it stops. If I tell it to go to 300 beats per minute, it does exactly that. You'll be on the floor before anyone reaches you." The color drained from Daniel's face completely. "You're bluffing." Mia tapped her screen. His pacemaker jumped to 180 beats per minute. Daniel gasped. his hand flying to his chest. Sweat broke out on his forehead. "Stop," she tapped again. "Back to 1:30. I know you're feeding our location to the FBI," Mia said, calm, steady, like she was reading him a grocery list. "I know you want your brother dead, so you can take his empire. And I know if I tell Kai what you've done, he will handle it himself. But we don't have time for that right now." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to something cold and final. "So here is exactly what is going to happen. You are going to sit in this penthouse and do nothing. You are not going to call anyone. You are not going to send any more messages. You are not going to warn the FBI or Vance or anyone else about our operation tonight. And if I even suspect for 1 second that you have betrayed us," she held up the phone. "I turn you off, understood?" Daniel stared at her with pure, concentrated hatred. "You can't test me right now, see what happens." For a long moment they stood facing each other. Everything reversed. Then Daniel's shoulders collapsed in defeat. "What do you want?" "Your silence, your cooperation. And when this is all over, you and I are going to have a very honest conversation with Kai about what loyalty actually means." She turned to leave, then paused in the doorway. "One more thing, Daniel. If anything happens to Kai tonight, if he dies, if he's captured, if he ends up even slightly more hurt than he already is, your pacemaker will interpret it as a fatal arrhythmia, automatic, irreversible. So pray we all come home safe tonight." She locked him in the security room down the hall. "Engage the biometric lock that only Kai could open from outside. Sit tight," she said through the reinforced glass. "And pray we make it back." She left him pounding against the door and went to tell Kai they were ready. The assault team loaded into 3 black vans an hour later, windows tinted dark, armored panels hidden inside the body. Mia rode in the lead van with Kai, her laptop balanced on her knees, already working on getting inside the prison's external systems. Dex drove. Quinn and Marcus sat in the back, checking their gear with the relaxed efficiency of people who had done this 1,000 times. Kai sat beside Mia, his wounded shoulder wrapped tight beneath his tactical vest. He had been quiet since they left, his focus complete and inward, like a weapon being aimed. "The ventilation system is our entry point," Mia said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "I can override it remotely, flood their corridors with knockout gas. It gives us a 10-minute window before their backup systems kick in. And Jace's cell? Block D, isolation wing. Vance is keeping him completely separated from the general population." Mia pulled up the thermal imaging. "There are guards posted right outside his cell and—" She stopped. "Kai, look at this." She turned the laptop toward him. The thermal image showed Jace's cell clearly, but the ventilation system connected to his room glowed bright red, active, running at far higher than normal output. "Vance is draining the oxygen from his cell." Kai said quietly, "He knows we're coming." "How?" "We were careful. We didn't." Then she understood. "Daniel." He must have gotten one message out before she stopped him. Kai's expression went absolutely cold. "How long does Jace have?" Mia ran the math, her heart sinking with every number. At that rate, 20 minutes. Maybe 30 if he stays calm and keeps still. Then we have 20 minutes. Kai spoke into his calm. "All teams, we are going loud." "Standard breach. Dex, get us to the north wall." "Mia," he looked at her directly, "you're staying in the van." "What?" "No, you're staying in the van," he repeated, no room for argument in his voice. "You access the ventilation system from here, restore oxygen to Jace's cell, and guide us through their security." "That's your job?" "Mine is to bring your brother out alive." The van screeched to a halt outside the prison's north perimeter. Razor wire, spotlights sweeping the grounds, guard towers looming in the dark. Kai looked at Mia one final time. His hand came up to cup her face, his thumb tracing her cheek in a gesture that had become dangerously familiar. "If anything happens," he started. "Nothing is going to happen," Mia said fiercely. "You are going to get Jace. You are going to come back. And then we are going to make Vance pay for every single second of this." Kai's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "That's my girl." Then he was gone, disappearing into the darkness with Dex and the assault team, leaving me alone in the van with her laptop and the crushing weight of 20 lives resting entirely on her hands. She cracked her knuckles and started typing. The prison's security system was strong, but Mia had been preparing for this all week. She slipped through their defenses like smoke, found the ventilation controls, and went completely cold. Someone had changed the access codes, new encryption, military grade. Vance had been expecting her specifically. Mia's hands shook. Outside the van, she could hear gunfire erupting, shouting. The assault had started. The clock was running, Jace was suffocating, and she was locked out. Come on, she whispered to the screen. Come on, come on, come on. She tried every back door she knew, every weakness, every trick she had learned at Maggie and taught herself in the years after. Nothing worked, every single path was blocked. Then she remembered the original architecture, the code she had written 3 years ago. The system might have new security layers on top, but the core structure underneath, that was still hers. She stopped trying to break in. Instead, she spoke to it. Mia opened the command line and typed in the activation phrase she had embedded into her original thesis years ago. The creator's signature, the thing that would identify her as the person who had built this in the first place. For 3 full heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the screen flooded green. Creator recognized, awaiting command. Mia almost burst into tears of relief. Restore ventilation to Block D isolation wing. Emergency oxygen. Now, command accepted. On the thermal imaging, she watched the angry red glow in Jace's cell shift to calm blue. Oxygen flooding back in. Kai, she spoke into the comm. Oxygen restored. Jace's cell is clear. Go get him. Copy. His voice was tight, breathless. Gunfire crackling in the background. 30 seconds out. Mia watched the thermal imaging with her heart jammed in her throat. Kai's team moved through the corridors like shadows, taking down guards, reaching the isolation wing. The cell door, then every alarm in the facility screamed to life simultaneously. Red emergency lights flooded every corridor. And on Mia's screen, she watched 50 thermal signatures converge directly on Kai's position from the east wing. Full tactical response team, Kai, she screamed into the comm. You have 50 armed people coming from the east wing right now. I see them. His voice was unnaturally calm. Mia, I need you to lock down the east corridor. Buy me time. Her fingers flew. She triggered every security door between the SWAT team and Kai's location. Emergency locked down across 7 separate checkpoints. It would hold them for maybe 3 minutes. On screen, she watched Kai's team grab Jace, a barely conscious thermal signature, moving in and out of upright, and start moving back the way they had come. But the response team was breaking through her locks, and more signatures were appearing from the south, converging, cutting off the extraction route entirely. You, Jun, she caught herself. Kai, you're completely surrounded. I know. He actually sounded almost amused. Mia, remember when I told you I don't let go of what's mine? Yes. I meant every word of it. Whatever happens next, you did everything right. This was always going to be the hard part. Don't you dare, don't you dare, Mia whispered back. Tears streaming down her face. Don't you dare sacrifice yourself, don't you? An explosion ripped through the comm signal. Then static. Then silence. Kai? Nothing. Kai? The thermal imaging showed fire and smoke and signatures scattering in every direction. In the middle of the chaos, 3 figures moving toward the extraction point. Mia stopped breathing, waiting, praying to anything that would listen. The van door burst open. Dex stumbled in, supporting Jace's weight. Behind them, covered in soot and blood, and the particular look of someone who had walked straight through the middle of an explosion and kept going, Kai. Alive, Mia launched herself at him, and he caught her with his good arm and pulled her against his chest hard enough to leave bruises. She didn't care. I'm here, he murmured into her hair. I'm here, we're all here. The van tore away from the prison. Sirens wailing behind them. Mia held onto Kai like he was the only solid thing left in a world that had just tried to collapse around her. In the back, Jace was breathing, alive, free. And for the first time in 5 years, Mia let herself actually believe they might have a chance. The penthouse elevator opened to silence, the wrong kind of silence, the kind that made Mia's skin prickle immediately, kind that set off every single alarm bell 2 weeks inside Kai's world had sharpened in her. Dex noticed it too. His hand went to his weapon instantly, his body shifting to place himself between the door and Kai and Jace as they stumbled out. The assault had cost them. Kai's shoulder was bleeding through the fresh bandages again. Jace was barely conscious, held up between Quinn and Marcus. But they were alive, they had made it. Mia stepped into the penthouse and felt it immediately. The air was wrong. Too still, the normal background hum of the server room was gone, replaced by a high, pitched whine that set her teeth on edge. "Something's wrong," she whispered. Nobody laughed. That was the first sign Mia had made a terrible mistake. In her exhausted, soaking wet, half-delirious state, she had expected people to laugh at her. She had expected a security guard to grab her by the arm and drag her back to the elevator. She had expected mockery, disbelief, maybe pity, but the room went dead silent, and not the regular kind of quiet. The kind that makes every single hair on your body stand straight up. Kai Sion turned away from the window. She had seen his face before, on her phone. In news articles she scrolled through during her third shift at the convenience store, too tired to sleep, too broke to do anything else. The ghost of Portland, head of the Hiren Syndicate, a man who had built an empire out of violence and computer code. But the photographs hadn't captured what it actually felt like to be in the same room as him. The way he moved through the air like gravity itself bent around him. Like the whole world adjusted its path to make room for him. He looked at her the same way a wolf looks at something it hasn't decided whether to eat or keep as a pet. "Say that again," he said, softly, so softly it was somehow more terrifying than a shout. Mia's throat squeezed shut. Every single instinct she had was screaming at her. Apologize, back up, get in the elevator, pretend this never happened. Run, but she had spent 12 years being invisible. 12 years being ignored, dismissed, looked through like she was made of glass. 12 years watching her mother fade away in a hospital bed they couldn't afford. 12 years knowing her brother was going to die for a crime he committed to save her life. She was so tired of being invisible. "It's a recursive overflow loop," Mia said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Someone hard coded a logic bomb into your security system. It triggered the moment you started the international transfer. The system thinks every single incoming connection is an attack, so it keeps locking itself down over and over in an endless cycle. You can't fix it from outside. You have to rewrite the bridge connection from inside the core architecture itself." Kai took one step closer, then another, until she could see the exact color of his eyes, gray, cold as a winter storm rolling in off the ocean. Until she could smell the rain still clinging to his expensive suit. "And you know how to do this. Not a question." "I wrote the original code," Mia whispered, 5 years ago at MIT, before I was blacklisted, before someone. Her voice caught for just a moment, stole my work and turned it into something twisted. She swallowed hard. "That security system of yours, it's a broken, corrupted version of something I built." Something moved in Kai's expression. Not kindness, not even warmth, more like recognition. The way one weapon recognizes another weapon across a room. He turned to his head of security without taking his eyes fully off her. If she moves wrong, shoot her in the leg, keep her alive. Then he looked back at Mia. And for the very first time since she had walked into this nightmare, she saw him smile. It was a terrible smile. Absolutely beautiful and completely ruthless at the same time. "Fix it," he said. "You have 69 minutes. If you succeed, I'll give you anything you want." He leaned in. His breath was warm against her cold rain, wet skin. "If you fail, you will never leave this building." Mia should have been terrified. She should have begged. She should have run. Instead, she turned toward the main computer console, set down the bag of noodles she had been delivering when all of this started, and rolled up her sleeves. "I'll need access to the main server," she said. And someone better get me coffee. This is going to take all night. Behind her, she heard Kai laugh. It sounded like breaking glass. I think I'm going to keep you, he murmured. Mia's fingers moved across the keyboard like they had been born there. Every keystroke was surgical, deliberate, beautiful in the brutal way it tore through the corrupted code, bleeding across the screens in front of her. She didn't think. Thinking would remind her where she was in a room full of men who had killed people for less than breathing wrong. Thinking would remind her that a gun barrel was pressed against the base of her skull. Cold metal against skin, still damp from the rain outside. So she didn't think. She just typed. The code architecture spread out in front of her like a language she had forgotten she knew. Jagged broken pieces nested inside endless repeating loops, each one strangling the next, creating an infinite cycle of self-destruction. Amateur work but vicious. Someone had taken her original MIT thesis, the security system she had designed before they blacklisted her, before they stripped her name from every patent, and had weaponized it into something monstrous. Her hands didn't shake. They should have. 3 days without sleep. 2 meals in the past 3 days. Her body running entirely on fumes and fury and the desperate, clawing knowledge that if she failed here, her brother Leo was going to die at sunrise tomorrow. But her hands stayed steady, rewriting reality one command at a time. Behind her, she could feel Kai watching. Not like the others in the room. Not with skepticism or mockery, or that particular kind of contempt men reserve for women they've already decided don't belong. He watched her the way a collector watches a rare painting he just discovered in a dusty back room. Hungry, possessive, already calculating ownership. The first screen flickered. Green code bloomed across it like spring, arriving after a nuclear winter. Then another screen, and another. The server towers hummed back to life, a sound like resurrection. And Mia felt something crack open inside her chest. Not relief, something darker than relief, pride. The savage electric satisfaction of proving every single person who had ever dismissed her completely and catastrophically wrong. Transfer resuming, someone behind her whispered it, their voice threaded with equal parts awe and terror. 99%, 90, 9.5, 90, 9.8. Transfer complete. The words hung in the freezing air like a verdict handed down by a judge. Mia sat back, her fingers finally went still. She had done it. She had just saved $10 billion for a man who probably used that money to buy governments. Her vision blurred at the edges. Exhaustion, finally allowed to show itself now that the crisis had passed, came flooding in all at once. She turned in the chair, her legs felt weak, and she found Kai standing closer than she had realized. So close she had to tilt her head back just to meet his eyes. Those cold gray eyes that reminded her of winter storms rolling across the Pacific Ocean. 5 stars, she said. Her voice came out rougher than she meant it to. Please, I need the tip. His expression didn't change, didn't soften, but something shifted behind those eyes. Some calculation quietly recalibrating as he looked at her. Really looked at her, not at the cheap yellow jacket, not at the braids going frizzy from the rain, not at the exhaustion carved into her face like old scars. He looked at her the same way he had looked at her code, like he was seeing the actual structure underneath the surface. Mia tried to smile, tried to take a step toward the elevator, tried to remember how legs worked. The room tilted. No, she was tilting, falling. The adrenaline that had kept her upright this whole time evaporated all at once, and her body decided it was done. Finished, empty, the marble floor rushed up toward her. Strong hands caught her before she hit. Kai moved faster than a man his size had any right to move. He slid one arm beneath her shoulders and one under her knees, and lifted her like she weighed nothing at all. Maybe she didn't. Maybe 3 years of skipping meals to pay her mother's medical bills had hollowed her out until there was nothing left but stubbornness and code. Her head lulled against his chest. Through the expensive fabric of his shirt, she could feel his heartbeat. Steady, unhurried, a rhythm that said this man had never panicked a single day in his life. Stubborn, he murmured. But there was something in his voice that wasn't quite irritation. Reckless. Mia wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him she wasn't reckless. She was desperate. There was a difference between those two things, and it mattered. But her tongue felt thick. Her thoughts scattered like smoke in wind. The last thing she registered before the darkness took her completely was Kai's voice. Quiet, absolute, lock the doors, she doesn't leave. Silk against her skin woke her up. Mia's eyes opened to amber light filtering through what looked like liquid gold. For 3 full heartbeats, she didn't remember where she was. The sheets beneath her were softer than anything she had ever touched in her life. The mattress held her body like warm water. The air smelled faintly of sandalwood and something darker, more dangerous. Then memory came crashing back, the penthouse, the code, the monster who had caught her when she fell. She sat up too fast, her head spun, and she realized 3 things all at exactly the same time. 1, her wet clothes were gone. In their place, she wore a silk robe that whispered against her skin like either a promise or a threat. She couldn't decide which. 2, her phone sat on the nightstand, and beside her screen dark, but somehow menacing just by being there. 3, she was trapped. The room was beautiful in the specific way that expensive things are beautiful. All clean lines and quiet luxury, the kind of space designed to make you forget you're in a cage. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed Portland bleeding rain and neon light into the night sky outside. One door led to what she guessed was a bathroom. Another door, heavy and almost certainly locked, led to whatever was waiting beyond. Mia reached for her phone. It unlocked without her passcode. Her stomach dropped. He had been through it. Through everything, her messages to her brother's lawyer. Her bank statements showing $37.19. The hospital bills she had been ignoring, because looking at the total made her feel like she was drowning. The eviction notice buried under 3 months of unopened mail. Every desperate, humiliating piece of her life laid completely bare. She should have been furious, should have been terrified. Instead, she felt weirdly calm, like standing on the edge of a very tall cliff and realizing you have already been falling for a long time. The fear stops mattering when you've already left the ground. Mia stood, tightened the robe's belt, walked toward the heavy door. It opened before she could touch it. The office beyond was darker than she remembered, lit only by the soft glow of computer monitors and the burning city outside the windows. Kai sat behind a massive desk, perfectly composed, eating her delivery. The spicy stew she had been bringing to this building when everything went sideways. Hours ago, maybe longer, she had completely lost track of time. He looked up as she walked in, and something in his expression made her pulse skip. Not anger, not even surprise, just a predator's patience, like he had always known she would wake up. Had simply been waiting for the moment so the hunt could properly begin. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Mia considered refusing, considered turning around and running for the elevator, for the stairs, for any exit this glass fortress had. But her legs felt like water, and more importantly, she knew with bone, deep certainty that running would only make everything so much worse. She sat. Kai set down his spoon with deliberate care. He touched something on his desk. The monitor to her left flickered to life. Code her code, every line of the fix she had written tonight, displayed on screen like evidence at a trial. "You're very talented," he said quietly, no warmth, no flattery, just a plain statement of fact. "The department at MIT must have been devastated when they lost you. They didn't lose me." Mia said, her voice came out steadier than her heartbeat. "They erased me. There's a difference, because I wouldn't let a professor take credit for my thesis. Because I had the nerve to say no to a man who believed my work belonged to him." Something in Kai's expression sharpened. It might have been respect, and yet. He said, spinning the monitor to face her, "Your code is here in my system, modified, corrupted, but unmistakably yours. Tell me, Mia Chen, how does a delivery girl's architecture end up protecting criminal empire?" The way he said her name made her skin prickle, like he was tasting it, learning the exact shape of it in his mouth. "I don't know," she admitted. I wrote that security protocol 3 years ago. It was supposed to be used by legitimate cybersecurity companies. After MIT blacklisted me, I assumed it died along with my career. It didn't die. Kai leaned back in his chair, a predator completely at rest. It evolved. Someone stole your work, sold it on the black market. I purchased it 2 years ago for $8 million. It has been the foundation of my entire network security ever since. $8 million for code she had written in a dorm room on stolen coffee in pure desperation. Then tonight, Kai continued, his voice dropping lower, your code tried to kill me. The virus locked down every single system the moment we initiated our most important transfer, 20 minutes before you arrived. We were minutes away from total collapse. Mia's throat tightened. I didn't. I know you didn't. He pulled up another screen. This one showed code she recognized, but had not written. A twisted version of something she had built. Turned into a weapon. This wasn't an attack from outside. He said, it was a trap planted by someone inside my own organization, designed to detonate at exactly the worst possible moment and destroy everything. But here's what's interesting. Kai stood. The air in the room shifted, got heavier as he moved around the desk toward her. The virus didn't just crash the system. It was searching for something. And when you walked into this building with your phone in your pocket, it found it. Mia's pulse hammered in her throat. Found what? Kai stopped directly in front of her chair, close enough that she had to tilt her head all the way back to hold his gaze. Close enough that she could smell the rain still clinging to him. The expensive cologne failing to cover something darker underneath. Leather and smoke and a kind of quiet violence that lived in his skin. You, he said simply. The system recognized its creator. Your phone carries a ghost copy of the original source code, a fragment of the first version. You couldn't bring yourself to delete it, but your code knew you were there. It tried to connect with you. That's why it crashed. Your architecture was trying to come home. Horror and understanding hit Mia at the same time. I didn't hack you, she whispered. Your system recognized its creator. Exactly. Kai's lips curved. Not quite a smile. More like a wolf showing its teeth. Which means you're not just talented, Mia. You're dangerous. You built something that recognizes you the way living things recognize each other. Something that will only fully function in your presence. He leaned down, both hands pressing on the arms of her chair, caging her in completely, his face just inches from hers. Close enough to see the flecks of steel in his gray eyes, the faint scar cutting through his left eyebrow. You built the lock, he murmured, his breath warm against her cheek. Now you will be the key. Mia's heart slammed against her ribs. She should push him away, should demand he let her go right now, should remember that this man was a monster who had built a throne out of blood and fear. Instead, she met his gaze, and she didn't flinch. What do you want from me? Kai straightened. He pulled his phone from his pocket. Touched the screen. The monitor to her right flickered on her brother. Jay sat in a cell barely large enough to breathe in. His head was in his hands. He looked smaller and more broken than she had ever seen him in her entire life. The timestamp read 3 hours ago. The location label read, maximum security, death row. Something inside Mia's chest cracked completely open. I know everything about you, Kai said. His voice was quiet. Absolute. Your brother, Jace Chen, 29 years old, convicted of selling military-grade hacking tools to international weapons dealers, death penalty, execution scheduled for sunrise, 36 hours from right now. Mia couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the image of Jace in that cell, waiting to die for a crime he had committed to save her. I know your mother is in Portland Medical Center, stage 4 cancer, $37,000 in debt. I know you work 3 jobs and still can't make rent. I know you haven't slept in 3 days because you've been working extra shifts to pay your brother's lawyer, who, by the way, is planning to quit his case tomorrow morning. Each word was a precise cut. Exactly the right depth to do maximum damage. I know, Kai continued, that you are brilliant and desperate and standing on the edge of a cliff with nowhere left to fall. He set his phone down on the desk and looked at her, really looked at her, with an intensity that felt like being peeled open and examined. So here is what is going to happen, Mia Chen. You caused $10 million in damage tonight. The delay, the panic, the near-total collapse of the most important deal of my career. By any reasonable measure, you owe me. I saved your empire. Mia shot back. The anger finally broke through the fear like a fist through glass. You did, Kai agreed, which is why you're still breathing. But you also broke it in the first place, even if you didn't mean to. The scales aren't balanced. He moved back to his desk, pulled out a sheet of paper, actual physical paper, thick cream, colored, clearly important. You have two choices, he said, setting it in front of her. Choice 1, you walk out of here. I have my people remove the code signature from your phone. You go back to your 3 jobs and your dying mother and your brother's execution. And in 36 hours, Jace dies. And you spend the rest of your life delivering food to people who will never once see you. His voice dropped, soft and lethal. Or choice 2, you stay. You work off your debt by managing my servers, my security, my entire digital empire. You become my personal architect, and in exchange, I use every resource I have, legal and otherwise, to keep your brother alive. I have judges on my payroll, prosecutors who owe me favors, evidence that can disappear. Within a week, I can have Jace's execution indefinitely postponed. Within a month, I can have his case reopened. Within a year, I can have him walking free. Mia stared at the paper on the desk. Because that's what it was. She could see it now with total clarity. A devil's bargain, written in legal language. Bound in blood, you want me to work for you, she said slowly. I want you to belong to me, Kai corrected. Your mind, your skills, your complete loyalty. You'll live here. You'll answer only to me. You'll build me an empire that even the best hackers in the world can't touch. He leaned forward, those gray eyes boring straight into hers. And in return, I'll give you the one thing you cannot buy or steal or code into existence. I'll give you your brother's life. The room felt like it was closing in, the silk robe suddenly too tight, the air too thin. How long? Mia managed. How long what? How long do I belong to you? Kai smiled, a real smile this time, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. Until you pay off $10 million at minimum wage rates, my accountant calculated it, approximately 18 years and 4 months. Mia's world tilted completely sideways. Or, Kai continued, his voice softening into something almost gentle, until you stop wanting to leave, whichever comes first. He slid a pen across the desk toward her. Choose, Mia, the cage or the cliff, salvation or execution, me or nothing. Mia looked at the contract, at the pen, at the monitor still showing Jace in his cell, waiting to die because he had loved her violently enough to damn himself. She thought about her mother dying by inches in a hospital bed, about the eviction notice, about 3 years of being invisible, dismissed, erased like she had never existed. She thought about the way Kai had caught her when she fell, the way he had looked at her code like it was art, the way he had said her name, Mia Chen, like it actually meant something. This was a trap, a golden cage, a beautiful prison, but it was also the only way Jace survived Friday morning. Mia picked up the pen. If I do this, she said quietly, if I give you 18 years of my life, I want one thing added to the contract. Kai raised an eyebrow. You're not in a position to negotiate. Neither are you. Mia met his gaze, steady, unflinching. You said it yourself. Your system needs me. It recognizes me. Without me, your empire has a weakness nothing else can fix. So yes, I am in a position to negotiate. Something flickered in Kai's expression. Surprise, maybe, or something that looked like admiration. What do you want? When this is over, when Jace is free and my debt is paid, whether that takes 18 years or 18 days, you let me walk away. No hunting me down, no revenge, no dragging me back into your world, you let me disappear completely. Kai was quiet for a long moment, studying her like she was a puzzle with a piece he couldn't quite find. Then he nodded slowly. Agreed. When the scales are balanced, you're free. He pulled out his own pen and wrote the clause at the very bottom of the contract in dark, heavy strokes. Then he signed it. Your turn, he said, sliding the paper toward her. Mia looked down at the contract one final time. At the cage she was choosing. at the devil's bargain that would save her brother and cost her everything else. She pressed pen to paper and signed away her life to the ghost of Portland. Kai took the contract, folded it carefully, and placed it in his desk drawer. When he looked up at her again, his expression had changed. No longer the predator evaluating whether the prey was worth keeping. Something more complex, possessive, pleased. "Welcome to the Hiren Syndicate, Mia Chen," he said softly. "Your room is ready. Your computer is being set up as we speak. Tomorrow you begin. Tonight," he gestured toward the door. "Tonight you sleep, because starting tomorrow you're mine." Mia stood on shaking legs. She wanted to say something sharp, something that would remind him she wasn't broken, wasn't owned, wasn't his. But the truth was simpler and more terrible than any clever comeback. For 18 years, or until she stopped wanting to leave, whichever came first, she was exactly that. She walked toward the door. The silk robe whispered against her skin. She could feel his eyes tracking her from behind, that same predatory focus that never quite turned off. At the threshold, she stopped. "You," she said, without turning around. "Yes. Thank you for not letting Jace die." Silence. Heavy and loaded, then soft as either a prayer or a threat. "Don't thank me yet, Mia. You don't know what I've saved you for." The door closed behind her, with a sound exactly like a cell door locking. And Mia Chen, former MIT genius, current delivery girl, walked into her golden cage and wondered when, if ever, she would actually want to leave. 2 weeks inside the penthouse, and Mia had learned the rhythm of captivity. Wake before dawn, write code until her eyes burned. Eat meals she didn't taste. Sleep in silk that felt like either an accusation or a reward, depending on the hour. Repeat, the server room had become her kingdom, a glass, walled space where the only sounds were the hum of machines and the rain that never stopped falling on Portland. Kai had given her everything she needed. 6 monitors, a processing setup that made her old MIT equipment look like a child's toy, access to systems that could bring down governments, and coffee. He brought her coffee every single morning at 6. She had no idea why that detail mattered so much, but it did. The way he would appear in the server room without a sound, set the cup down beside her keyboard, always black, always scalding hot, and leave without a word. Sometimes she would catch him watching her work, standing in the shadows like a ghost, his eyes tracking the movement of her hands across the keys with an intensity that made her whole body aware of itself. The thing between them had shifted into something she couldn't name, something dangerous. She was the only person in the entire organization who spoke to Kai without lowering her eyes, the only one who would argue when his orders made no technical sense, the only one who had seen him lose his composure, even briefly, that moment at the beginning when he had caught her, held her like she was something precious instead of something he owned. He fascinated her, God help her, the monster genuinely fascinated her, the way he moved through every room like he had already decided how it would end, the way his voice could shift from silk to steel in the space of a single word, the way he looked at her, sometimes not like a possession or a tool, but like a puzzle he desperately wanted to solve. And she terrified him, though he would never say it out loud. She could see it in the way he watched her work, the way he stood closer than necessary when they reviewed her progress together, the way his voice dropped half an octave every single time he said her name. She held power over his empire that no weapon could match. Every server, every transaction, every secret depended on her skills. That should have made her feel powerful. Instead, it made her feel like they were both caught in a web neither of them had meant to spin. Tonight, the penthouse was quiet. Kai's men were scattered across the city on operations she made a point of never asking about. His second-in-command, Hayes, had nodded to her on his way out, a small gesture of respect that would have been completely unthinkable 2 weeks ago. Even the security team had learned to give her space when she was deep in code. She sat alone in the server room, surrounded by the blue glow of monitors, chasing ghosts through encrypted files, Jace's court case. She had been avoiding it for 2 full weeks, too afraid of what she might find, but the not knowing had started to feel worse than any truth could. The nightmares were getting worse. Dreams where Jace stood in an execution room, looking at her through the glass, mouthing words she couldn't hear. Dreams where she typed and typed and typed, but the code never worked, never saved him, never changed anything. She needed to know the truth, even if it destroyed her. Mia pulled up the sealed court records using Kai's admin access. Started with the basics, the arrest report, the evidence logs, the prosecutor's timeline, standard procedure. Everything looked clean on the surface, too clean. She went deeper, followed the money. Financial records were always where the real truth hid, buried under layers of perfectly legitimate transactions and fake company names. And there it was. A wire transfer buried so deep that only someone who knew exactly what to look for would ever find it. 5 years ago, January 15th, $150,000. Sender, an offshore account linked to an international arms dealing network flagged by government investigators 3 years later. Recipient, Mia Chen, payment note, educational services rendered. Mia's hands froze on the keyboard. Her vision tunneled. No, that wasn't possible. Jace had told her it was a scholarship, a last-minute grant from some tech foundation that had discovered her work. He had been so genuinely happy when he called her, his voice bright with relief, saying she didn't have to drop out, didn't have to give up on her dreams, didn't have to come home and work nights at the convenience store with him. She had believed him. God, she had been so relieved she had never once questioned it. Had never wondered why any foundation would pay full tuition for a sophomore with decent grades but no published papers, no patents, nothing that would normally attract that kind of serious money. With shaking hands, she pulled up the evidence files from Jace's conviction, found the dangerous code he had been accused of selling. Looked at the structure, the signature, the date it was created. December, 5 years ago, 1 month before her tuition payment hit her account. She compared it to Jace's other old work, projects she had helped him with when they were teenagers, teaching each other to code in their mother's tiny apartment, while their mom worked double shifts at the hospital, too tired to do much else but leave them food and a kiss on the forehead. The signature matched, the style matched, the specific way he nested loops and handled errors. It was Jace's work. All of it, Mia's vision blurred. She blinked hard, but the tears came anyway, hot, furious, devastating. Jace hadn't been set up. He hadn't been framed by someone else. He had built that code himself. Had built a weapon that ended up killing 17 people in a military strike that went terribly wrong. Had sold it to dealers who turned it into a massacre. Had done it knowing exactly what it was, what it would become, and what it would cost him. He had done it for her. The sob came from somewhere deep, somewhere she had kept locked down for 2 weeks of playing the composed genius. The valuable asset, the girl who had signed away her freedom without breaking. She shoved back from the desk, the chair rolling hard across the floor, and stumbled toward the balcony doors. She needed air, space, anything but the truth staring at her from those screens. The balcony doors opened silently. Because everything in Kai's fortress opened silently, like the building itself was complicit in secrets. The rain hit her like punishment, cold and relentless, soaking through her thin shirt within seconds, plastering her braids flat against her skull. She gripped the railing, her knuckles white against the metal, and let herself break completely. 17 people. She had looked up their names once, late at night when she couldn't sleep, when the weight of Jace's conviction had felt like slow drowning. A father of 3, a college student, a grandmother, real people with real lives. All ended because her brother had needed money, and someone had been willing to pay for death. And she had taken it, had taken the tuition money and the opportunity, and built a life on blood without ever knowing. Had walked through university halls feeling grateful, feeling blessed, feeling like finally something had gone right for her. Jace had sacrificed his soul so she could chase her dreams, had damned himself so she could be brilliant, had killed 17 people, men, women, people she had never met, so she could have an education. The guilt was suffocating. The rain wasn't cold enough to wash any of it away. Nothing would ever be cold enough. You'll catch pneumonia. Kai's voice cut through the rain, low and close. She hadn't heard him come out. She didn't turn around, couldn't bear to let him see her face doing this. Crumbling, raw, completely honest, looking weak instead of valuable. But he moved beside her anyway, close enough that his body heat reached her through the cold. Close enough that she could smell leather and smoke, and that expensive cologne that always made her think of dangerous things. He didn't touch her, didn't crowd her space, just stood there in the rain like it was the most natural thing in the world for the head of a criminal empire to get soaked on a balcony at midnight. "You found it," he said, not a question, a statement, like he had always known exactly what she would discover tonight. Had been quietly waiting for this moment. He wasn't set up. Her voice broke on the words, fragile as glass. "He did it, all of it, for me, yes." The single word of confirmation was somehow worse than the discovery itself. Made it real in a way the evidence on the screen hadn't fully managed to. 17 people died because of code my brother sold. Because I wanted to go to MIT and change the world and be someone. She laughed. It came out jagged. Broken. I am someone. I'm the reason 17 people are dead. 17 people died because weapons dealers turned technology into a murder weapon. Kai said quietly. His voice held no judgment and no false comfort, just cold, exact fact. Your brother built the tool, but he didn't aim it. The dealers chose the targets. They planned the mission. They executed it. Don't carry their blood on top of your own. Mia finally looked at him. Rain streaked down his face. His hair was dark and wet. His shirt stuck to him in the cold. Out here, he looked different somehow. Younger, more human, less like the demon everyone whispered about. The city lights reflected in his gray eyes and turned them silver for just a moment. "How can you say that so calmly?" she demanded. "How can you just?" She gestured helplessly, water flying from her hands. "How can you live knowing the things you've done, the people you've hurt? How do you sleep at night?" Kai's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes, something old, tired, resigned. Like a man who had asked himself those exact questions 1,000 times, and finally stopped searching for the answers because in the world he lived in, there weren't any clean ones. In this world, Mia, love is just another form of violence. He moved closer. She should have stepped back. She didn't. Your brother loves you violently. He would burn entire cities to keep you safe, would sacrifice every piece of his humanity to give you a chance at keeping yours, would kill 17 strangers so that one person, you, could have the life he thought you deserved. His hand came up slowly, giving her all the time in the world to pull away. She didn't. His fingers brushed the rain from her cheek. A touch so careful, so impossibly gentle. It felt like blasphemy coming from hands that had ended lives without hesitation. "Accept it," he murmured. "The guilt won't bring those 17 people back. Hating yourself won't undo what your brother chose to do. Destroying yourself won't save him. All you can do is decide what you're going to do with the life he bought you, whether you waste it on guilt or whether you make it worth what he paid." Mia's breath caught. She should pull away, should remember this man was a monster, that his touch was poison, that every single moment she spent in his orbit dragged her deeper into a darkness she might never find her way out of. Instead, she leaned into his palm, just slightly, just enough to feel the roughness of his skin against her rain, cold face. "How did you know?" she whispered, "that night, the delivery. How did you know I would be the one to bring your order?" Something moved in Kai's expression. Not quite a smile, more like the acknowledgement of a secret finally being said out loud. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Slow, deliberate, his eyes held hers, storm gray and absolutely steady. "I hacked the delivery app's routing system 6 months ago," he admitted. His voice was quiet, the kind of quiet meant only for her. "Tracked your delivery routes, knew which shifts you worked, which neighborhoods you covered, how long each delivery took you. I built a system to predict exactly where you'd be and when." Mia's heart stopped, then started again, harder. "You've been watching me for 6 months."